Hello and welcome back. Today I'm going to recreate yet another iconic movie dress. This white dress worn by Marilyn Monroe. So let's go! To make this dress, I first have to create a pattern, and therefore I'm going to take this pattern I made to make the Toto Matoshi inspired dress and just change it up a little. And for the rest of the bodice, I'm going to attempt to drape it on myself because I don't have a dress form. And the skirt is just going to be a long rectangle. This is now my second mock-up, and by now it fits pretty well. I just pinned some things in place that aren't perfect yet, so I'm just going to take this off and trace it out on paper to make the pattern. I have a pattern for the top, and for the skirt I don't need a pattern because it's just a long rectangle. So let me show you my fabric. It is this white satin plissé, and I don't know what I thought when I bought it, but I only got 2 meters when these folds are stretched out, and that's just not a lot of fabric. And if I would want to make the skirt as big as the original one, this wouldn't even be enough fabric. So when I'm cutting this out, I'm definitely going to be very careful to waste no fabric to make the skirt as big as possible. So let's cut out the pattern and the skirt. I just wanted to cut out the piece, and then I noticed something, and that is that I can't cut through the lines of the fabric. I always have to cut parallel to the folds, so I can't cut out my pattern piece. And I think I'm just going to cut out the pattern on the lining, and for this fabric I'm just going to cut out a rectangle and just drape it on the lining and hope that it works. I finished to cut out all the pieces for the bodice, and I decided not to cut out the skirt yet because if something goes wrong with the bodice, I just want to have the fabric still in one piece to fix my mistakes, but I just hope that won't happen. And I also went ahead and fused some interfacing on the lining of the bodice. So next I'm going to close the darts of the lining and sew this seam up here on the lining and on the outer bodice. I finished to sew the darts and I also secured them in place, but I didn't sew up this seam up here yet because I think that would just make it very hard for me to turn it around later. So now the next thing I'll do is to try to attach the satin layer onto the lining on the side seams. Usually when I hand sew, The seam looks just very messy, but this time it actually looks pretty good. Ta-da! We have 2 finished cups. So next I'm actually going to close up the seam up here, and I'm just going to turn one of them inside out, put it in the other, and then sew around it so it's nice and clean. When you do this, it's very important that the fabric is right sides facing each other, so it's going to look nice. I'm just hand sewing the pleats down here in place because I think that's going to give me a better result than if I would do it on the sewing machine. The neck holder part is finished, and it took pretty long, and I don't really know why, because they're actually not that hard to make. It was just hard to figure out how to do it. So next I'm going to attach the waistband onto the neck holder by sandwiching the neck holder in between the waistband lining and the outer fabric. It is finished! I mean, the bodice is finished, but that's the difficult part of the dress, so we're almost there. This is how the bodice looks on. I think it turned out very nice. So next I'm going to cut out the skirt. The skirt is cut out and it is exactly 64.5 centimeters high, and that is because it was the highest I could make the skirt while still cutting out like 1.5 rows and not just 1 row. So it's barely enough. And next I'm going to sew the 2 panels together, and I'm going to try to sew them together in a way that the folds are covering the seams, so you can't tell that it is sewn together. Look at this seam. I'm just kidding, you can't see it, and that is because it is hidden between the folds, but it is actually there. So next I'm going to sew a long gathering stitch along the top edge of the skirt and gather it to the size of the bodice. The skirt is attached, so now there are only 2 things left to do, and the first is to put in a zipper and the second is to hem the skirt. To put in the zipper, I start by pinning the zipper onto the back of the dress. Then I sew the 2 pieces together with a basting stitch. I make sure it closes nicely and then I properly sew it in place. Next, I sew another piece of fabric on the zipper, cut the zipper short, and then fold that piece over to finish the zipper off. Then I just have to close up the rest of the back and hem the skirt. It is finished and I really like how it looks. I like the skirt and how swooshy it is, and I also very much like the fit of it. But there is one thing I would change if I would redo it, and that is the interfacing, because the interfacing I used is just very stiff and it creates weird folds on the cups and it's just not looking that nice. You can't really see it because the other fabric is covering it up, but I would just, I don't know, go without interfacing or just a more lightweight interfacing. That's just the only thing that I think is not perfect about the dress, and everything else just looks very nice. So if you like this video and you want to see more, definitely subscribe to my channel so you won't miss any videos. And if you have any ideas or recommendations what you want to see me make, definitely leave a comment down below. And without further ado, let's have a look at the finished dress.